Hello everybody, welcome to the Daily Sip. My name is Oliver. My mission is to bring you closer to organic Japanese green tea, but today we're gonna not talk about too much about the green tea, but about the chasen. The chasen is actually the bamboo whisk which you're maybe already using if you're a little bit of a matcha aficionado, or if you're not yet into making matcha, or only making matcha with your blender, with your shaker, or maybe with your metal whisk at home. Today I'm gonna talk about this beauty here. This is the matcha, the chasen matcha, or the matcha whisk or bamboo whisk, how it is called, and we're gonna dive into this tool and why it is good to have one and what are actually the alternatives to it. So when we talk about the chasen whisk or the bamboo whisk, what are we talking about? And it is actually a single piece of bamboo made of the lower part, so you can see it is not hollow, so it is really coming from a piece of bamboo. On the one hand you have the bottom part where you grab it, and on the top part you really can see that the bamboo has been converted into a whisk with around 80 to 100 bristles, or so-called prongs, and then the bamboo actually becomes this beautiful fine product, and finally it is a good tool to whisk your matcha. And this already brings me to the first point. And what does actually the chasen do the most? It creates a beautiful and a great foam for your matcha. And this is quite important because it can just produce an additional layer of a taste sensation with a smooth, with a silky kind of texture, really making the matcha just beautiful to drink. And this is actually what I want to dive into right now, is just the preparation of the matcha and what you have to respect when you do your matcha. So first, I have a matcha bowl, but you can also use a simple bowl which you have at home, and then you're gonna prepare your matcha. For this I took a spoon, a bamboo spoon with me. You can also use a normal teaspoon, and very important, the sifter to get your matcha through. So what I brought here with me today is a ceremonial blend, a ceremonial grade, and it is actually a nokomidori, so you can see the beautiful shiny color of this matcha. It's just incredible, a beautiful, great quality matcha which I have here, and it is from my favorite cultivar, so green tea plant type, which is a cultivar called Okomidori. And what I will do is I just take 2 grams and I'll put it into the sifter, and then I just gonna sift it through, and you see how beautiful and easy actually the powder drops down into your bowl. And this, you only have to do it for around 20 to maximum 30 seconds. In the beginning maybe it goes from 30 to 40 seconds, but as soon as you have done it like for 5-6 times, you know how it works, you know the deal, and you become quite quick with it. So a super fast and easy way to just make your matcha powder even finer. And what you should get then is this beautiful fine powder which you can see here in my bowl. Next, what I will add on is around 3 to maximum 4 ounces of water, which are around 7 to 100 milliliters of water, and then I just gonna whisk it. So you see here the water is inside, and what I will do is that I will start to zigzag the water and to create this beautiful foam. And you will see after just some whisking that you create a beautiful foam. So you can see here how it turned into this beautiful foam, and you can see it's actually a little bit at the bottom of my chasen, and the chawan, the matcha bowl, just has then a beautiful matcha inside. But I will show it to you a little bit closer. So I have my glass here, and I just gonna fill it with the matcha and the beautiful foam, so you can see how the foam drops down. So this is really why you should use a matcha whisk. So you see this beautiful foam that's actually created thanks to the prongs, or thanks to the bristles of the whisk. And now we're gonna compare this to a normal whisk. So what I brought with me is a normal small kitchen whisk. So you already can see the difference. So this could be your tool which you already have at home, and the main difference which you really can see is that you have 6 to 8 kind of bristles or kind of connected metal parts of this whisk connected. Here the unconnected 80 to 100 prongs or 80 to 100 bristles. So this is the main difference, and now let's see what actually happens when I put it to work. So I'll do the same thing. I'll use matcha. First I sift it. Again, take the ceremonial grade matcha. 1, 2. Now I used a little bit less in the first one, so I'm gonna take a third one just to have really the same amount of powder, around 2 grams, which is 1 teaspoon or 2 of these bamboo spoons, well filled. Here, voila. So you can measure the time. I hope I didn't take more than 20-25 seconds to do this job, because over time you will really get fast and you can pass the matcha powder easily through the sifter. Voila, same here, beautiful powder which I created. Now it sticks a little bit more thanks to the water I already used, and now I'm just gonna fill in the same amount of water. And voila, and I'm gonna use the matcha whisk. So already in terms of sound, it's not so easy. It's a little bit louder. It's harder to mix, but then you can do like the egg white. But you see that already the water just jumps out more of the bowl, so it's a little bit harder to make the same. And now let's see how this looks like when I fill it in. So there's some foam which is being created here, but you can see it's much less dense than there. Maybe I'll show it here. So we can see it already opens up here. You see the see-through to the water. The density of the foam is much smaller than with this one here. So already here we know we have created this like 5 minutes ago, so the foam has already gone down a little bit, but here we never reached the same amount of foam. And now in the texture, when we have a look at how to taste this, so it's much lighter. We have more kind of this sweetness, or kind of the sweet tones that show themselves. It's a little bit watery. It's kind of not very smooth. There's not a lot of kind of special texture of the matcha, but it gets along very well with this smooth, sweet taste, which this Okomidori matcha is showing a lot. So we have a lot of body, we have a lot of sweetness, we had a lot of smoothness, but now in comparison to this one here, in my opinion, it makes a huge difference. What I'm getting a lot is a little bit more of this nutty flavor profile, which is kind of brought to the forefront thanks to the smoothness, a little bit this bigger layer of foam which we have on top of it, which then also on the tongue shows itself as a much more kind of a broader taste experience. On the one hand, I have this sweetness which I'm getting from the matcha whisk, but it's just getting enhanced by this kind of smooth, nutty flavor profiles. It nearly reminds me a little bit of natural peanut butter, so it really gets you a little bit more of a smoother, silkier taste experience as an additional layer in comparison to the one made with matcha whisk. But there are also other tools, and there's actually a tool which I'm personally quite fond of. If you don't want to buy a matcha whisk because you say it's not worth it, I want to have a kitchen tool which I can use for other things, is actually the so-called aerolatte when you buy a brand, or it's just a simple milk frother if you go to a supermarket and you buy a non-branded product. And what you can do, so what I will do is I'll just take the one where I used the Matcha Whisk, and I'm just gonna drop it in, and then I will create, or kind of work with this matcha. It's much easier, super simple. I'm gonna drop it in just a little bit more and stop. And what we can see is, in comparison now, we have a very similar layer of foam. So actually the one made from the milk frost, you can see like gives a super dense and beautiful foamy texture. You can really see that the foam just drops down, so it's quite dense, so very similar to the one which you get from the whisk. And now in terms of taste, lifts it to the similar level, so it gets really just a little bit creamy, a little bit smoother, silky flavor profile, nutty flavor profile, which I'm getting from here. So in a verdict, if you don't want to buy the chasen itself, the tool which you're getting the same effect from is the milk frother. But when we are going into a second step is finally when you're getting up, and matcha is mostly a morning drink because it is quite powerful in its amount of caffeine. It is quite powerful in its amount of theanine. So it really gets you going into a very beautiful and relaxed state, but very focused. So in my opinion, a very good drink for the morning. And often when I get up in the morning, the problem is a little bit, and this maybe you have already heard before, but when we switch on the milk frother, it just makes a little bit of a noise. So if you really want to have a quiet and kind of relaxed, not very kind of waking up moment, then definitely the smoothness of the chasen, which is just showing a little bit of this kind of sound, is just a different experience in the morning. But here we are really getting technical. Here we are really getting into the details of making matcha. That's why I would say, from just the perspective of what the end product looks like, they are very similar. Here you just have the mechanical noise of the milk frother, and here you just have the beautiful sound of the chasen and the bamboo touching the clay of your tea bowl. But as I said, here we're very technical. If you don't disturb by this one, then definitely a milk frother is absolutely an option for you. Then when we are talking about the preparation of the matcha, maybe you have seen this before, so I put these two aside. So what do we need to do to create our own little ritual? And let me guide you through a tea ceremony which I lived through also in Tokyo, when I was able to do and experience the matcha preparation. So what actually happens is, when you're moving into the world of the tea ceremony, then you have different choices. Often there's a 30 to 45, means shorter tea ceremony, or you can even go for a longer one, which is around 2 hours, but there also food is involved. When we are looking at the simple kind of shorter session, what does the tea master actually guide you through? So I will make here a very simplified version of the tea ceremony, but just that you get a glimpse of how this ritual might be something for you when you're sharing a tea moment with some of your friends or somebody living with you, or you want to do the tea ritual with yourself. So first thing what we need is a bowl. This is a typical Japanese bowl which we're using here for the tea ceremony. On the one hand you have the clay, the glazed clay, and you have some beautiful drawings here, and this is something we use in the beginning. Then second is definitely the sifter and the teaspoon, or the bamboo spoon in this case, and then I'll just take out, as I mentioned you, or I showed you before, I take out the matcha, put it into the strainer, and then I just, or the sifter, and then I just put it through. Sometimes, and maybe some of you have already attended a tea ceremony, there often what you don't see is this sifting. And this is the reason for this is that often the matcha is pre-sifted. But I'm assuming that you are not pre-sifting all the matcha you're using before you really use it. You can do it right on the spot. That's why I was doing it. But often when you're participating in a tea ceremony, this is not done. And often the matcha is already pre-sifted in kind of a smaller bamboo container, which they're using during the tea ceremony. Then they put the matcha in. And in the end, what they add is the water, often from a kama. So this is kind of a iron pot where they have the water in. They put it into their bowl, and then they just gonna whisk it this way. This is always important. You always have this W motion or the zigzag motion coming from one part to the other, looking that the chasen doesn't touch the floor of the bowl, but just slightly below the floor, and whisking the matcha. Then when you have prepared the matcha, when you're sharing the tea, then you actually want to show the full beauty of the tea. So you have the beautiful matcha inside, and what you will do now is that you actually turn the beautiful side of your matcha bowl in direction of your guest. And you can see here the small details behind. So from the angle, depending how this person looks on your tea bowl, he will see both sides. So the beautiful front, which I can show you here, so you can see the sakura flowers, which are drawn now on this tea bowl, and the small behind. They're also smaller sakura bowls, and then sakura flowers, and then you just turn it in the direction of your guest, and then you're gonna serve it to your guest. So this is very simple, the small ritual of having the tea ceremony with somebody you want to share it with, or somebody that is you. And when it's you, definitely you turn it in your direction, and then you just enjoy your matcha for yourself. So this is the kind of own ritual which you can create when you're at home. And the very last and important point is then when we look at actually the sustainability side. So, and here definitely we have the matcha, or kind of chasen or matcha whisk, bamboo whisk. Then we have the normal whisk out of metal, and then we have the milk frother. Definitely from a sustainability side, coming from a source, a natural source which regrows every year, this is definitely the best sustainable way you can prepare your matcha. Second one, I would say it's the matcha whisk. It is not from a sustainable source, but it is recyclable, and then you actually can be reused in another form. The one that is definitely the least sustainable is the milk frother with its automatic motor. Then you have the battery which is inside, and you have the metal. So you first would have to separate it, and then finally you could recycle it. But definitely from the sustainability standpoint, this one here is not number one. This is rather number 3, number 2, and the chasen number 1. So it's a little bit depending what you're looking for. These are just small tips we were trying to give you. I personally like the chasen a lot, and if you kind of keep it well, which means that you first, before you use it, you put it 1 or 2 minutes in a water bath. It can be cold water. Sometimes I use warm water or even cold water. You just leave it 1 to 2 minutes in. Then you use it, just that the prongs, so the bristles, they soak up a little bit of water. They become a little bit more flexible, so they don't break when it touches the wall of your bowl. Then second one is when you have used it, you just put it back into a bath with clean water, and then you whisk it just to clean it, to have it proper. and don't put it back into a container which is sealed from air, because then your chasen will mold, and this is something you don't want. Just put it on outside, put it into open air, and then it can just dry on its own. And next time you use it, don't forget to put it back in the water bath before using it. Super easy. This one I use it since around 1 year, so it's absolutely possible to use the same Matcha Whisk 1 to 2 years. And if you need a new one, then after maybe 2 years, you can buy a new one. But until then, you will have used it many times, and it will hold with the quality for a long time. Good. So this was a small session about and around the chasen whisk and the tools to prepare your matcha. I'm curious to get to know what you took away from this session here, and if there's anything you would like to know in anything else you're curious about, please feel free to leave a comment and let us know. See you and bye bye.